And so today's topic at the Rise Up with Margarita show is the top 3 ways scarcity is showing up in your life right now. So today's topic is the top 3 ways scarcity is showing up in your life right now. And here at the Rise Up with Margarita show, I'm really sharing what light workers need to really show up in a bigger way in the world as new earth leaders. And so I'm going to share and cover what scarcity actually is, because some people don't really are not familiar with how that looks like for light workers, why light workers are feeling this more strongly than others in a collective, because there's a reason for this. And then the top 3 ways scarcity is showing up in your life right now as a light worker and what you can do about it. So as I was mentioning earlier, this is super important for light workers to really have an understanding and a grasp on, because the truth is that light workers, when they are not really healed, they haven't done the inner work yet, they haven't really healed their traumas, like they're really going to be susceptible to a lot of these programmings that are implemented out in the world, right? And so this is why I'm always sharing, make sure you do your inner work, make sure you do your healing work, heal your traumas, clear and heal all these things that are still triggers for you, because where you're still triggered is where you're still unhealed, and anywhere where you are unhealed is where other things can slip in, and this is part of being in your discernment and empowerment as a light worker who is empathic, who might be a starseed, who, because there are a lot of starseeds who are light workers, right? And it's really important to have an understanding and a grasp of how to work with your energy in a really powerful way, and to be really discerning and to be clear in your energy, because if you're not, then it's going to be super hard to discern what the truth is versus an illusion, right? And one of these illusions is scarcity. And it's a huge one for light workers right now. So here's what scarcity is. It's the feeling that there isn't enough money, resources, time, food, access, abundance, etc. in the world to go around. That basically, if other people have XYZ, if other people have money, if other people have food, if other people have success, right, then that leaves less for me. That's the belief. And what scarcity also is, it's a strong feeling of lack. It's this aspect of lack. And one person had told me previously this belief of, the opposite of abundance is lack. And the truth is that the universe is abundant, period. So the opposite of abundance is not, lack. It's the abundance of lack. So if you want to kind of think of it that way. And also the biggest piece I wanted to share with you around scarcity is that it's a programming that is being deployed to the collective right now to keep people in fear and scarcity. So, I mean, you saw it for since 2020, fear your body, fear everybody else, fear other people, fear, your immune system, fear, fear your money, fear, fear, right? And now, it's like getting nuanced, and it's like, what kind of thing can be deployed that people can get more afraid of now, right? And so, so let's make them afraid of we may not have money, we may not have access to food, so there's a lot of talk about recession, and, not saying that it doesn't exist, right? That's a whole different thing. That's spiritual bypassing, saying, oh no, we're not in a recession, right? But here's also the truth is that, and I saw this from one of the amazing folks that I follow myself. Her name is Manifestation Babe. You should check her out, but she's just really, that's her main focus, right, is on money and abundance. And I saw something she shared, something like, something about recession, and then God is never in recession, right? Which is so true. And so this is an aspect that I actually share, and where, your money comes from God, right? And you're an aspect of God. And I'll go deeper into that in a little bit. But I just wanted to share about this is all to bring scarcity into a more nuanced way, right? And it's like when you're really in your power as a light worker and as a starseed who's really showing up as a new earth leader, you're actually able to see through all these illusions and not be like, oh my God, they're right. You know, like I'm going hell in a handbasket, right? It's like when you're really in your power, you're like, you see through all the bullshit and you're not believing, you know, and again, not saying, oh, it doesn't exist, right? Because on some level, on some plane, it's existing, but it's really powerful to acknowledge that there's an actual programming going on. Yeah, I'm seeing a comment here. Someone sharing it's programming and conditioning, social engineering, scare tactics. That's what it is. That is what it is. Yeah, so, you know, and so that's why I wanted to talk about scarcity right now, because so many light workers get caught up in it. Like it's one thing to acknowledge, and then here's another nuance and another layer, right? Is that it's one thing to acknowledge, oh, okay, these fear tactics are showing up and these scarcity programmings are showing up, but then it's not anything if you're still stuck in them yourself, right? If you're still like believing it anyway, right? So here's why light workers are feeling this more strongly than others in the collective. So number one, light workers, especially those who are powerful enough to be new earth leaders who create change and impact in the world, have powerful potential. It doesn't mean that you automatically have it all awakened, right? Like that's a process. And it's actually something that I really help my clients with. It gets activated instantly. And then it's also another thing to be in the consistency of that, which is why I have my mentorship program. But they have powerful potential, much of which is, as I mentioned, untapped, unhoned, and not fully cultivated. And so when, like, just imagine this, right? If you've got a really powerful population in the collective who has the potential, like this juicy raw nugget of gold in their being that is like yet unhoned, yet untapped, not fully cultivated yet, but wow, it could be super powerful if they only knew how powerful they were, right? And if they actually lived and led in that power, right? Can you imagine that certain programmings would just be obliterated, right? These scarcity programmings, these social engineering programmings would be obliterated if lightworkers only knew how powerful they are, right? And actually led from that place. It's not just only great to have a logical knowing, yes, I'm logically very powerful, but are you implementing it? Are you leading your life from that place? Are you believing as if you really are, you know, in the fullness of your power, right? And then, so number two, why light workers are feeling this more strongly than others in the collective, the programming is an intentional weapon, as I've kind of alluded to, being deployed as part of this temporal spiritual war on consciousness to keep light workers and starseeds in fear of being in their power and in their abundance. And so what more of a powerful tool would you need to keep powerful people down than to make them believe that they're powerless, than to make them fear their own power, than to make them fear their own abundance and prosperity, right? To be in this whole, you know, thing of being stuck in their traumas and being stuck in their, you know, blocked lower chakras and staying in the survival mode, right? Like what a powerful, effective mechanism that is. And it's kicking the spiritual community's ass, I'm going to tell you, right? It's really kicking the spiritual community's ass because they're believing this crap, right? So here's the top 3 ways scarcity is showing up in your life right now. Number 1, money. And that is number 1 for a reason, because a lot of light workers have this scarcity programming around money, right? So money scarcity shows up as carrying this belief that there isn't enough money to go around. So you believe that you are limited to, or you don't have access to money. So you hold back from going in on your dream, achieving your light worker mission, and then you end up just staying in survival mode, in, you know, unbalanced root and sacral plexus chakra, you know, issues where you struggle with bills, where you feel you don't have access to food, and you're kind of living from that broke and poverty mindset, right? And too many people in the spiritual community live from this, and it's like a badge of honor. And that is the biggest load of shit that I've heard, because the reality is that we are so powerful. We can be super abundant and make impact, right? Like a lot of light workers have this belief that, oh, if I have a lot of money, then that means I'm just greedy, right? And it's like, well, that was, that went from 0 to 1,000 pretty quick, right? Like, I mean, there's a difference there, right? And so people who believe this, people in the spiritual community who believe this scarcity around money, they might even believe this old paradigm belief that money's evil. And, also what happens when you're in money scarcity, you get jealous and resentful of people who have money, or who have more money appearing as if they have more money than you, right? Because sometimes you never know. And then you get resentful about it, right? Rather than being truly, genuinely like, man, that is so awesome. That person just like, reached their financial goal, and that is so amazing, right? And, and that's scarcity around money scarcity. Yeah, and Haley's sharing, it's no coincidence that this is the topic for this week, and I'm experiencing the money scarcity right now. Yeah, it's big. It really is. Yeah, haha, biggest load of shit, hashtag guilty. Yeah, well, I mean, um, we've all been there, and then there will be waves where it will continue to pop in, and you still get to have mastery around it, right? One of the posts that I posted recently, I think it was Friday, was that, as you, like, no matter how powerful you are, you're always going to have periods of self-doubt, or your energy will plateau, or you won't be able to see your blind spots, right? There will always be periods of those occurring, right? And, so that's why you don't want to lone wolf your light worker journey. New earth leaders are the ones who will hire actually experts and coaches to help them transcend those experiences, right? But the point I'm making is that that post was really even speaking into this money scarcity, because that can show up all the time, and it's regular work. It's not like you do some work and then now it's gone and like you can live in peace now, right? It's this level of mastery. That's why it's called the ascension journey, not the ascension trophy that you get at the ascension path, right? There's no such thing. It's really this aspect of you doing the work and continuing to do the work. I mean, that's the really powerful thing. So that's how money scarcity shows up, right? So it's really good to be very honest with yourself, like even brutally honest about how you are allowing any of the things that I'm sharing here into your life. And like, I'm not, in your life, like peeping in your window saying, hey, are you are you experiencing time scarcity or money scarcity, right? Like, I mean, you are the one who really gets to understand like what you're really holding back from, right? So you get to see if any of this resonates for you, and this is really, really important. Okay. I have learned to transform trauma through source, and I know my power, but there is this huge wall still. It sucks. LOL. Yeah, and so I love that share, because the truth is that, that's an example, right? Just because you're in your power, doesn't mean that your power stays there. Like, I mean, when you're really committed to your growth, you're always expanding into the next level, right? And you're committed to it. That's really what New Earth leaders are here to do. Yeah, Erilyn is saying, still get to have mastery is such a positive way to frame it. It always on our journey. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And because this is not about just like getting by, it's called mastery for a reason. So you get to have it. Number two, in terms of how scarcity shows up in your life right now, is through love. Love scarcity shows up as believing you won't have it, or that there isn't enough in the world for you, which shows up as being controlling. Okay. And the women are mostly guilty of this. Um, like, I'm just calling it for what it is, folks. So, really being in this controlling aspect, right? Because it's this perception of controlling, like, if I control this person, situation, experience, right? Then I will be taken care of. Then I will be loved and supported, right? Like that is the energy behind being controlling, right? Is the lack of trust. That's what being controlling is that this, I don't believe I'm going to be loved. I'm not going to get the love that I want, need, desire. And so I'm going to just control the crap out of this situation, right? Also, how it shows up when you're being in your love scarcity is being a perfectionist with everything you do, right? And this whole thing of like, I got to keep going until I'm perfect, until this is perfect, until I'm perfect, until this experience is perfect, right? And being a perfectionist is really more about worth and your perception of what you believe you're worthy of. That's really what perfectionism really is a reflection of. It's this energy, the energy behind perfectionism is, if I'm perfect, I'll be loved, right? So that is also love scarcity. Being controlling is how love scarcity shows up. Being in perfectionism is how love scarcity shows up. Also carrying betrayal, bitterness, or pain in your heart, thinking that you won't experience it in the way others do, and being like upset, angry, whatever, for what others appear to have in regards to love. And, it's kind of like that whole thing of, you've seen this before, perhaps. I know I certainly have, where like, I'll just take like women, for instance, right? Because I see this a lot with women, where women will be like, I want this and this and this and this in a partner, but they're not willing to shift. But they're not willing to clear out the bitterness and the betrayal that they're holding in their heart, right? Like they're like, men are subservient, but I expect this and this. I expect high quality, like a high quality, wonderful love, right? But they're not willing to shift and make that change. That is also love scarcity, because it's this scarcity of like, there's not enough to go around, right? There's not enough love to go around. I need to control things in order to get my love, right? So that's really important. And I love this share. My 10-year-old daughter reminds me all the time that it doesn't have to be perfect, Mom. Out of the mouths of babes, right? So that is number 2, in terms of how the top 3 ways scarcity is showing up in your life right now. So far, I've covered number 1, which is money, and how money scarcity shows up. Number 2 is love scarcity and how that shows up. And then number 3 is time scarcity. Because I hear this all the time from Lightworkers of like, I don't have time for this, right? This is how it shows up, right? When you have time scarcity of, you say, I don't have enough time for this. I don't have time for all the things I want to do. I don't have time for my dream. I'll get to that when I have time. I'll get to that one day. There isn't enough time in the day, like all these things that we share around time. And all of the things I just said is how time scarcity shows up. Like there's not enough, right? Anywhere where you're saying there's not enough, you're in scarcity. And so really, the truth about being in scarcity with time, and even sometimes, people will say, people who have time scarcity will even say, only people get lucky with that kind of time, or, other people have more time than I do. And it's like, we all have 24 hours in a day, right? Every single person. Like Oprah has 24 hours in a day, right? Like all these heavy hitters in the world, they have 24 hours a day in their day as well, right? So it's not about, oh, there's not enough time. It's just, what are you doing with your time, right? And the thing with Lightworkers is that, a lot of Lightworkers who have not yet shifted into being New Earth leaders are still in this whole thing of like doing things that aren't helping you get results, right? Like they spend too much time on stuff that doesn't actually give you the results. And I'm not talking about having downtime and resting. That is part of what you get to have and do to get results, right? So I'm not talking about your self-care. Self-care is part of you achieving your results. But what I'm saying is that what you are prioritizing is what you spend time on. So it's not that you don't have time, it's that you're not prioritizing the things that are important to you, right? And so that's really what is behind that energy around time scarcity is that there's not enough time. There's not enough time to go around, when really it's not a time problem, it's a priority problem. So let me know if any of these are resonating for you in terms of these three-way scarcity showing up in your life right now. And if you're just joining us, I covered what scarcity is, why light workers are feeling this more strongly than others in the collective, the top 3 ways scarcity is showing up in your life right now. And then now, of course, I'm going to share with you what you can do about it. So it's not, I don't, as you know, I share with you like what's going on and then what you can do about it, because it's super important to actually do something about it. So here are some ways, right? This is not the definitive list by any means, but this is something where they work. Like, I know they work. And it's very important to know that. And I'm seeing the comment here, 100% been distracting myself from what really matters with BS for way too long. Yes. Haley's sharing, these are helping open my vision to so much more information. I'm glad to hear it. And this is really about opening up into a perception shift, right? Because this is what light workers who are here to be New Earth leaders are getting to have an opportunity in, right? Like, we either get to stay in scarcity, or, are you going to choose scarcity, or are you going to choose clearing it out and no longer being in scarcity around your money, around your love, and around time, right? Because if you do not, like, I'll tell you what it'll cost you. First of all, if you don't clear up all this scarcity with money, right? All this pain stuff you have with money, like other people have money, I don't have money, or I don't have access to money, or all these outdated illusion belief systems, right? If you stay in the scarcity of money, you will be a broke ass light worker, right? And then what's even worse than that is that if you're too busy being broke and scurrying around trying to pay your bills, then you're not going to be focusing on making the impact you're here to make, right? So this is really important to know what happens if you don't heal this money story, right? And if you are finding me now, it is because you are here to create big things, create change and healing and impact in the world. And you won't get there by staying stuck in your physical chakras, the first, second, and third chakras, right? So then the second way to, be in scarcity, which is around love. And if you don't clear this love scarcity, then you're not going to have any connection with anybody. You just won't. That's what it is. That's the tragedy, is that you will not connect with anyone. And our hearts are hardwired to want to connect with others, to want to be with others, to feel depth with others, right? And that's why all this lone wolfing bullshit that a lot of light workers say, oh yes, I'll do it by myself. It's like, okay, good luck with that, because it's like your heart is going to be dying in the meantime as you like try to figure all this out with like numerous YouTube free videos and stuff like that, right? And Google University. It's like, that's not how this ascension process works. So when you're in love scarcity and you keep going, what happens is that your heart will stay closed off, and you will not allow yourself to connect with others. And not only, on the romantic level, but also with your higher work, with your sacred work, with connecting with clients. Your clients won't feel connected to you, right? And you might not even be connecting with people, period, to even have clients, right? So, that's the bigger tragedy. And then when it comes to time scarcity, if you stay stuck on time scarcity, what will happen? You will be exhausted as crap, right? You will be exhausted out of your mind. You'll be fatigued and you won't know why. And the reason why you're going to be fatigued if you're stuck in your time scarcity is because you're going to be focusing all your energy on all the things that don't really move the needle in your life and just keep you like satiated in some stuck thing, right? Instead of actually focusing your energy into like what serves your highest good, right? One of the fastest ways I see this when light workers specifically get stuck in this time scarcity, and also with the money scarcity, is that they stay in a dead-end job, a 9-to-5 job that kills their soul, and they do it because they're like, I don't know, this is how we do it. This is how you make money. And the truth is that that's only one way to make money. And it's not necessarily an aligned way to make money, you know? And, but a lot of light workers will choose that because they think it's stable, right? But it's only stable because that's where you're focusing your attention on. Anything you focus your attention on will stabilize into that creation, right? And so that's really how it shows up in your life and what will happen if you stay in scarcity with money, love, and time. So now here's what you can do about it. So number one, get awakened to the fact that scarcity is an illusion, not real, right? So it's not enough to just be like, logically, yes, it's a programming in the collective, right? Like, but are you changing it in your own life? Are you shifting from money scarcity? Are you bringing in abundance, financial wealth, right? And then same thing with love, you know, like it's not enough to be like, yes, I believe that, you know, there is no love scarcity, and yet you're not connecting with people in your life, right? So you're not implementing it in your own life, right? And then the thing with time is like, it's one thing to be in the logical knowing of like, of course, time is a construct and it's not reality, right? But then you're running around ragged like, oh my God, I gotta get all these things done, right? So it's like really be brutally honest with yourself of what you are believing and how that is showing up in your life, and be awakened to the fact that scarcity is truly an illusion, not real. So that's the first step. And these are not necessarily steps, but that's the first thing that you get to do, right? Is that number two, stop believing it as a reality in your life. So the money scarcity, stop believing it's real. And it's not the whole spiritual bypassing of like, oh, I have like $10,000 in debt and I'm just pretending it's not there, right? I mean, in one way you actually could, right? Because you know, there's a way to even look at your debt, right? You can either look at it as debt, or you could look at it as you know, something you're moving through and investing in so that you can take care of yourself, or expand yourself, you know, that kind of thing, right? And you know, and that's with money. And with love, it's like stop believing that there's love scarcity. You know, that there's only enough love to go around, that other people have love and you don't. Like, stop believing that. It's just like, and I'm just, you know, it's like, it's really a choice. And I'm making, it might sound even like simplistic or facetious as I share this, because it just sounds too good to be true for it to be that simple, but it really is. You know, it's just about what are you choosing in any given day, right? Yeah, and so of course we should mention that transformation is a process and it doesn't happen overnight, and it begins instantly with a decision. And that is something that I know from experience and having done this for many years, right? This is how it begins, and it shifts if you choose for it to shift, right? And then you just keep choosing it every single day, and even every given moment that you're given the opportunity to question that belief, right? And that is how you create the lasting change. So, you know, stop believing it has a reality in your life. Like, just stop that. And number three, stop believing it has control over your life, right? Because anything that you believe to have control over your life, or anyone you believe to have control over your life, guaranteed they have control over your life, because you just gave your power away to these beings, organizations, situations, whatever, right? And so, you know, when you stop believing that any of these aspects of scarcity has any control over your life, like truly in the deepest level of your being, you're believing that, right? Versus a logical knowing, right? When you are embodied, which is a whole nother experience, right? To have a logical knowing versus being embodied. When you truly believe it has no control over your life, that's where you're really taking ownership of your power. Number four, realize everyone has the same access to abundance. Everyone. I don't care who you are, where you came from, everyone has access to abundance, right? And everyone has access to the same amount of time, which of course is a construct in itself, right? And everyone has the same access to love, because love is unlimited. Love is expansive. Love goes beyond time and space. Love goes beyond the universe, right? So, and this is not just like some Hallmark card moment that I'm sharing here. It's just the truth. And when you've done that work, when you're a new earth leader and you're really already connected to that frequency, it's just really expanding out, 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 out. And then you really see how expansive it all is. And then number 5, realize that financial wealth and love comes from God. And since you are divine, it comes from you, right? So all of this majority of DNA that the science doesn't know what it is, right? So they call it junk DNA. It's actually our angelic coding, right? It's our divine codes. And that's why, this work that I do with activating the divine code of power in others is so important, because for, I would say, all of us, we are born with this, potential, but it doesn't really awaken unless there are certain things in place or certain situations that happen in our lives. But that's actually part of my work. That's part of my bigger work. And it's not something that happens through like a session or two, because I don't do sessions. I provide experiences and intensives and also mentorships and coaching that are centered on this, right? Because that is how important being awakened in your divine potential is. And so all this thing about financial wealth and love, money, you are an extension from God. And so abundance actually comes from you. You get to, when you're a new earth leader, you're actually at the frequency of wealth. And yes, love, health, joy, love, and money, right? Because spiritual people love to like exclude money out of like the whole wealth equation, and it's like the reality is that when you're really a new earth leader, you're really already at that frequency. And it doesn't matter what's in your bank account, right? Of course, it does mean that you do have a lot of financial abundance and wealth, but it also means it's literally something you carry no matter what is in your bank account, right? That literally you are in this like full financial abundance and living your life from that place, right? So you're not like, in the money scarcity of like, oh, I can't afford that, right? Which is a very strong message to put out to the universe, right? And choosing your words even is very important to be mindful of. So that was number 5. Number 6, get clear on what this is all really about. So you might want to do some journaling around this to start creating some deep awareness around what's going on, because whenever you are getting triggered or having scarcity around money, love, or time, there's usually, I would say 99.99% of the time, there's something underneath what is under all of that, right? And so it's up to you to get really clear on what that is. So you can start journaling on, okay, this is my story that I've got about money, for instance, or this is my story that I have about love, this is my love scarcity story. This is my money scarcity story. This is my time scarcity story. And just getting really honest with, okay, how does that look like in my life, right? And then have another column with, okay, what is this really about, right? Is the money scarcity really about the money? Or is it that I have no trust? Or is it that I don't trust God, right? This is all really important stuff to do this deeper work on, because until you get to the true root of why this scarcity is showing up for you, you will not be able to transform it. So that's why the awareness piece is super important. So that was number 6. Get clear on what is really going on with these scarcity stories you've got, right? And I gave you an example on a journaling exercise on that. Number 7, get clear on what you want to be experiencing and creating with your money and your love and your time, right? And this could also be another journal exercise, right? Like, what is it that you really want to have instead in regards to your stories around money, love, and time? Like, what is it that you want to be experiencing and creating instead, right? So that gets to also be part of the work. And this is part of doing that inner work, right? Like, I'm not going to go into all the details of the basics of healing, right? Because that's not what this is about. But what I'm going to say is that this is part of doing that inner work. And then number 8, every time the old paradigm belief starts to show up, question its truth. And this is something I think I learned from Byron Katie. And like basically asking it, do I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that this is absolutely true? So like for instance, this belief that there's no money to go around, right? Let's just use that as an example. So then applying that question, questioning that old paradigm belief, right? So do I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that there truly is no money to go around in the world? There truly is no money. Do I know that for a fact? And once you really ask yourself that question, the answer will usually be like, no, obviously that's not the case, right? Like, I mean, if other people are able to be, buy a beachfront house or whatever, like there's obviously some money going around, right? And it doesn't mean that it's just stuck with a certain percentage of people, because we all have access to it. But if you don't believe that you have access, then of course you're not going to access it. So, it's one of those things. It's kind of like that kind of thing, right? And then number 9, what you also can do about it is you can hire an expert, a coach, a mentor to help you stay in that field of money abundance, of love abundance, of time abundance, right? And really helping you to prioritize what's important, all the things that will move the needle for you. That's all important. And I share that because yes, I do coaching and mentorship with New Earth leaders who are here to activate light and empowerment on the planet. And then I provide that through power activation and mentorship, but even if my work may not resonate for you, let's say, then find someone whose work does, right? But the point is that, that is a powerful, powerful tool, and so just let me know if this is really resonating for you. Marissa, hi, thank you. These reminders help me to keep on integrating. I've done so much work around this. Well, congratulations. That is great that you've been doing that work, Marissa. And yeah, so let me know which of the 3, money, love, or time, or all 3, I mean, it is what it is, right? You only can shift and expand what you are creating awareness of. So there's no shame in your game. Just like state what you're claiming and understanding for yourself. Oh, okay, at this moment, this is alive for me, right? So let me know, yes, is this resonating for you? Is one or more of these 3 ways of scarcity showing up in your life, showing up for you? Money and time, okay, yeah, those are really good ones. I mean, really, all of these are good. Time, someone else mentions time, and that's really interesting because the time is really a popular one so far. And usually it's money and love, but the time is also a big one. So, I mean, that's why there's 3 of them. So yes, and let me know in the comments which of the things that I shared in terms of, how you get to transform this, what you can do about it, what you're going to do about it next, right? That's my challenge to you is how are you deciding to transform this week? And it doesn't have to be like, I'm changing the world tomorrow, right? Like, I mean, it just gets to be like one shift. And it can just be a baby shift. It can be like an example of some small tweaks you can start making. One example could be, today I'm going to be more mindful of how I'm being in scarcity with love, just for today, right? And that's like a nice little juicy nugget to kind of, be like, okay, for today I can do that, right? So that's one way to approach it as a challenge. Other people are sharing money and some love. Yes, this is good to know, right? Because I mean, once you are aware of where you're holding things, then you can know, okay, then this is what I get to shift. And then it's like, that's half the work done right there, right? Like, it's like knowing what you're dealing with and then dealing with it. All 3 for sure, but focused on money abundance right now. Yep, that's a good one. That's a great one. Okay, so now I'm going to take a few questions on this topic around the top 3 ways scarcity is showing up in your life right now. So if you have any questions on any of the stuff that I just covered or on this topic specifically, let me know, and I can answer a few questions before we come to time. So I'm seeing Haley share, the money scarcity resonates hard. I am saying it now to shift my perspective on money and how it comes to me and the amount that comes my way. I trust the universe that money will flow to and from me. Beautiful. Erilyn says, today I'm raising my business practices. Oh my God. Woo! I'm going to clap you up because that is one of the fastest ways. I'll tell you, and this comes from experience, because I raise my prices every year. Your frequency is going to rise, not because you're rising your prices, but also because you're rising your prices, right? Because the reality is that I would say the majority of light workers undercharge. They don't charge enough for their services. Not that you're supposed to, charge $1 billion for like a single 60-minute session kind of thing, right? That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying, like $50 for like something that will transform your life, right? And it's like, it's a lot more than $50, it's just like, this is something that you get to embody. And this is something that you get, it's literally, it will upgrade your frequency. I'll just say that. I'll just start with that. So I love that. Wonderful. Marissa is saying, to me, is keep on questioning, looking for the evidence that I am abundant. Yes. Looking for the abundance evidence, right? And keeping the vision and taking the steps towards it. And I love that you're looking for evidence that you're abundant, because people are always looking for the evidence that there's not enough money, right? Like, oh, there it is. There's another piece of evidence, just like, that's exactly what I meant, right? There's not enough money to go around, right? If that's your belief, you're going to look for that evidence everywhere around you. But if you are looking for the evidence of abundance everywhere around you, you will also find that, and one of the fastest ways is to practice deep gratitude, no matter what is in your bank account. You can have $1 in your bank account and be like, wow, I'm so super grateful for this dollar. That's more than what some people have, right? Sharaya says, is there a certain type of job you prefer your clients to have? That's a very interesting question. And no, I don't have there's not a requirement of the jobs that my clients have that, I require them to have, right? They, if they are really feeling that resonance with me, if they feel like this type of coaching, this type of assistance is supportive to them, and then they just want to inquire, and then they're committed to their journey and they're open to that transformation, then, and they're connected with their heart. Like, those are kind of like the more basic the pieces that are really more important, right? It's not about the type of job you're having, but that's an interesting question. Okay, a single mother of 3, definitely on my path to rise as a new world leader, Lightworker and Starseed on a mission. I do struggle with fatigue and drainage constantly. What do you recommend to start a shift? Well, I don't know why, like off the bat, why you're experiencing fatigue and drainage constantly. So that's something you get to like explore first. But as I mentioned, one of the biggest reasons why Lightworkers will experience fatigue is because they're spending all their focus, time, and energy on things that are not aligned. On things that are not aligned for them, they're prioritizing the wrong things. They're prioritizing the wrong things that are not aligned with them, that are not moving the needle in their life, that they're doing just because they believe that they're supposed to. So, I mean, that is one of the biggest ways that fatigue happens for Lightworkers. And then the remedy to that is, do things that are more aligned. Okay, Haley's saying, how will I know when to wait and trust for money to come, when to take action, like yin yang energy? Interesting question. So, how will I know when to wait and trust for money to come and when to take action? So, well, you get to make a decision, right? You don't wait for anything. That's what disempowered lightworkers do. They wait for things to show up, right? Empowered lightworkers who are new earth leaders, they just decide. They make a decision of like, I'm going to make $1 million this year. Right? And it should be stretchy, and it should feel like a little bit like, wow, I feel like maybe it's stretching me a little too much. Maybe I can't make it, but it's something that excites me and that I really do want, right? That's when you've got a good goal. And then you just keep showing up in that frequency of who do I get to be to embody that? right? And this is where light workers who don't have support get stuck, because you will always have your blind spots and you won't know how to transcend them. But you'll keep on repeating it over and over and over because that's what you know, right? But if you've got like a coach or a mentor, then that person can illuminate what's going on there and be like, oh, so that's going on. This is why you're still spinning your wheels on this, right? So, Haley, to answer your question, it's really about making that decision, then embodying the person you get to be to have that creation. And then, of course, taking the aligned action around that, right? Marisa says, I raised my prices. Woohoo! I'm loving that you are all raising your prices. Go, go, go. Go get it. So I raised my prices and my trust is being now questioned. Any advice? Scarcity has been my biggest wound, the not enough kind, right? So the trust is being questioned. So are you saying that other people are questioning trusting you because you raised your prices? Or are you questioning yourself because you raised your prices? Either way, it's all a lie, right? Like, I mean, honestly, people can question you till the cows come home, but your prices are your prices, right? And you get to be enrolled in your own stuff. And this is something I teach my clients, because it is one thing to also keep your frequency, but it's also another thing to be like, you know, to stand your ground in your worth, to stand your ground in the transformation you provide, and to have that deep knowing, to be enrolled in your own stuff, right? Like, so not just focusing on enrolling your clients into this greater work so that they can transform it in a major way, but in order to transform other people's lives and get them excited and enrolled in this high level work that you do, you actually need to first be enrolled in your own work. So I hope that helps. Rooted in Wild says, shifting my money mindset has been the focus this year. Keeping myself in the energy of abundance. Every time I spend, I say I am abundant. Every time I receive, I express deep gratitude. That's beautiful. Yeah. And that's so important. That's so important, right? Is to really, like, as the money's flowing out, it's not like, oh my God, there it goes. There it goes, and there goes my life, right? It's like, instead of that, then it can just be like, thank you so much for this abundance. I am so abundant, and there's so much more coming back, and there's more where this came from, right? And do you believe in work less, get paid more mindset? Well, you know, I'm not going to, I think that's kind of a weird way to word it, right? Like, I mean, I don't believe in hustling. I mean, there's a certain level of implementation and action that you get to take, especially when you're at the beginning of your entrepreneur journey, right? Because you're putting systems in place, you're understanding, you know, how you like to do things and your systems and all this other stuff. And so there's a certain level of groundwork that you get to do, right? But hustling yourself to the bone, not my jam. Okay, so Maurice saying, no, I mean rather the mirror. I am now getting in my physical world. Clients are not signing up, and other. Yeah, so, you know, first of all, if you just announced these new prices, you know, just look into, you know, just because you raised your prices does not mean automatically that's why they're not signing up, right? It could be like it's, you know, the end of summer, you know, or there are other possibilities of why, you know, people aren't jumping in. Maybe it's your messaging. You know, is your messaging aligned? Is your messaging on point? You know, and that's something that I share too with my clients, is that if you are not really specific about who you're serving specifically, not like, I'm helping everyone, right? It's like, if you're helping everyone, you're not serving anyone. Like, that's really the honest truth on that. So really getting clear on who you serve, then having the aligned message to share so that you're reaching these individuals who you can help. It could be that, you know, or it could just simply be that you're exuding an energy that you're not aligned with your own prices, right? Or it could just simply be like, you know, it's just a matter of time, you know, and it has nothing to do with the raising of your prices or anything else. It could just simply be like, that's the way it is at the moment. Yes, I've made many moves towards alignment. However, the energy shifting is constant. Yeah, that's why it's really important to be in your consistency. Okay. Oh, interesting question. Does being in the wrong relationship create havoc in your financial life? So that I love this question because it's such an indication of how the way you do one thing in your life is how you do everything. Because that's something that is the truth, right? The way you address one thing is how you address everything in your life, whether it comes to love or money or your health or anything else, right? So if you're tolerating being in a relationship that is not aligned for you, then you're probably also tolerating behavior in your business that you're not okay with, right? And so it's just like, a place to get curious of, like if this is what I'm experiencing in my relationship, for instance, am am I displaying this, expressing this in other aspects of my life? And the answer will probably be yes. And you can tweak that if you're not happy with that, right? You can make some shifts. How do I differentiate the choice for comfort, money flow through a fixed job that feels good because of the comfort to a choice for the excitement of the unknown, being free for the universe's choice go? Okay, if I understand what you're saying, it sounds like you're feeling comfort in the money flow coming from a fixed job. And it's interesting how you say a fixed job. And that could also just be like, how we communicate, because here in the US, we call it a day job kind of thing. But I have a feeling, I think I'm remembering, Lisa, you may be, I think you're in Europe and there might be like a certain approach, right? There are certain like ways we communicate that are slightly different, right? So I think you're referring to a day job. But here's the thing. It's comfort just because you're familiar with it. It's not comfort because you're truly comfortable. Because if you were truly comfortable there, then you wouldn't be asking me this question, right? You wouldn't be bringing this up as a point of discussion if you truly were satisfied there, right? So the reality is that money flow that is coming in from, let's say, like a day job, a 9 to 5 kind of job, that certainly gives in a certain type of income. And maybe there's like a steady paycheck every 2 weeks, or health insurance is included, or, things like that. And that's certainly a choice, but so if you're choosing it because it's comfortable, then just know what you're choosing, right? Because you'll be comfortable, but whenever you're comfortable, you're not growing. So just know that you won't be growing if you stay in that job. Because if the other choice, as you say, is excitement of the unknown and being free, right? But you're staying in something that's opposite of that, that's something to think about, right? That you're choosing this level of comfort. And you get to be clear on why. And I think you know the difference, right? Because I think you were asking me how do I differentiate the choice, right? And one is just comfortable and something but that doesn't mean that it's good for you, right? Like, I mean, people stay in abusive relationships, but that's because that's where their comfort level is at for whatever reason, you know? But it doesn't mean it's good for them, And so that's the same thing here, is that just because something is comfortable doesn't mean it's good for you, doesn't mean it's aligned. It will only be a matter of time until you're exhausted out of your mind because you're spending so much energy on someone else's vision. Okay. So those were some really awesome questions and comments and observations, everyone. And great job with that. Because here's the thing, is that when you are actively engaging, questioning, and also too, it takes courage to ask these things, right? It takes courage to be like, hey, I'm dealing with a situation and now I'm like putting it out there for like all of Instagram or Facebook to see, right? I mean, that takes courage, because you don't know everyone here. So that takes a level of courage to be like, I'm moving through this thing, and how do I shift that, right? Like, and that is how, that internal inquiry is how you start to shift the perceptions. This inquiry of like curiosity of like, this is what I'm experiencing. What's going on here? How do I shift this? Oh wow, so I've been choosing this thing that is exhausting the F out of me. And then here over here is my greater calling, but you're still considering staying in the thing that provides comfort, right? And the thing is that true? You know, your dream does require you to focus on it. But if you can put enough focus on someone else's vision in a corporation or a job or, you know, some kind of cubicle position, that doesn't really serve you. And not saying that every single job is like that, but a good majority of it is, right? And I came from corporate, so I mean, that's how I know too, is that you can choose comfort if you don't want to grow, but if you want to grow, then you get to focus your energy into growing and creating foundations on your spiritual entrepreneurship. And so, yeah, that means putting down some foundations, creating some strategies, being the frequency, right? Keeping your vibration at this level that serves you and that is aligned with the outcome you want to achieve, right? It's a lot more than just love and lighting, if, as you can tell, right? Erilyn's saying, just love your intentional word choices, your realness, super inspired. So glad to hear that, and so glad you're here. Rooted and Wild says, thank you for today. Love the topic and insight. Lots to think about and continue to work through. Yep. As we all, right? As we all get to up level. And some of us are just, you know, have been doing this a lot longer than others, right? Like I've been at this for a while, and that's why I've got some wisdom to share. So, you know, if any of this has been inspirational to you and you're feeling my vibe and you want to go deeper with me and you would like some support from me and you're curious about what that looks like, then DM me your powerful Lightworker vision. Let's go from there. Or if you just want to skip to the chase, you can just book a call with me. You can apply using the link in Instagram, or you can just DM me for that link, and I'll DM you back. All right. So keep this in mind. Keep in mind the challenge you gave yourself. Like if you haven't made a little challenge to yourself based on today's topic of transforming your scarcity around one specific thing and choosing one specific tweak, right? This week to apply, make sure you do it now. And also, if you want to up your game, you can actually declare it here in the comments if you haven't already, because some of you were super brave and already claimed what you were declaring. Other people get to, you know, do that as well. And so I recommend that you do that and have a wonderful rest of the week full of love, light, and power.